Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Fix My Coaster Layout, which is a collaborative series between Brian Andrelczyk and I, where we take user-submitted coaster designs and offer feedback on areas like flow, realism, and anything else requested by the user. So in the last episode, we looked at Ryan's Virginia reel called the Golden Fleece in the middle of the scenario Magic Quarters, and here we're looking at what Brian did for his redesign. Now what Brian actually went ahead and did was clear out a lot of the surrounding rides and pathing, and really kind of transformed the area into something a lot more easy on the eye, especially with the double pathways and the gardens around the perimeter of the mountain. So although it was difficult to kind of make a realistic looking coaster, Brian has incorporated some elements of a more conventional Virginia reel into his design here, including these switchback sections, one over here and one on the other side of the mountain, and also incorporated the use of just a single climb right at the end of the track here before the station. And overall it just looks really clean and slick. I really like how we left the yellow rails on the coaster as a kind of homage to the original layout. Up in the center here we've got a pretty impressive looking castle or fortress, which provides some nice interaction with the coaster as well, just with the in and out section there. And then just some really nice looking landscaping all around the mountain that looks quite lush, but as well as that there's some nice open areas so it doesn't look too cluttered, which is perhaps something I'm guilty of doing on occasions. One consideration I took away from this in particular was allowing these open spaces to offer nice viewing areas for the guests, such as the boardwalk, just looking over the waterfall and the kind of bridge sections of the coaster. But also even at the back here, we've got a bit of a clearing from the path up to the top of the lift hill. Offers a nice little view of the coaster there. And I think this also highlights just how nice the mowed grass looks on some of these slopes here. I never really paid much attention to that, but it looks really nice. And there's also some pleasant looking fence work just around the perimeter of the coaster and on the queue line as well. So it was really neat. It was really nicely done. Brian typically uses custom scenery objects, so it was really cool seeing what he could come up with the very limited vanilla scenery sets in this occasion here. So with that done, let's move on to the next submission for this episode. Okay, so here we have our first wooden coaster of the series called Tremours, which was submitted by the user Observe the Train, which is contained within a nice big sandbox park here. Now, what was asked of us was to see how we would go about incorporating a mid-course brake run to get 3 trains running at one time and, running reasonably smoothly, as well as just providing some general feedback on the layout. So if we first look at the stats here, we can see we've got some pretty healthy stats, nothing really of concern here. Now if we just follow kind of one of the trains along here, we can see that it's got some pretty good pacing. It isn't too fast or too slow at any one point. Overall it's got a pretty good length, and it certainly makes the most of its initial height, with a pretty healthy amount of speed as it comes into the final kind of brake run or back into the station. In terms of a design style, it seems to be somewhere between a CCI or gravity group and a GCI sort of layout, but I'm sure Brian will have more to say about that. It does have lots of twists and turns, which is great, but maybe a little too heavily biased with left-hand turns. Now, as you can kind of see here, that the first section there's like 3 or 4 in a row. And then as it enters this kind of nested section here, we've got even more left-hand turns. So that's probably something I'd like to see get balanced out a bit more with a few more right-hand turns thrown in there. I'm not going to be too critical on the scenery because I think the trees were just left as they were from the sandbox template used. But I do feel obliged to point out that you would definitely want to avoid having trees under the coaster supports like this, as it doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. So I always feel like that's an easy thing to fix up there. So what I'd like to try and focus on in the redesign is kind of coming up with its own distinctive GCI feel. And mainly try and focus on getting a good mix of left-right turn combinations to try and improve the overall flow. I'd also like to reduce the length of this station platform and implement a couple of brake runs to get those 3 trains running as requested. So yeah, alright, let's get going. Alright, so to start with, I'll be removing the majority of the existing layout here, as well as clearing out some of the trees and pathing as well. Alright, so although we've kind of got unlimited space here, I'm going to try and stick into this area here with the red ground texture, just to give myself a bit more of a challenge and make sure that I don't go too kind of crazy with the layout. Now, the overall footprint is actually kind of square, which I typically don't really use for woodies. I usually like to go for something a bit more rectangular in footprint. But there are certainly a few GCI style coasters that use more of a boxy footprint, so I think we can get something going here. Now first off, I'm going to change the coaster train to articulated, and I think we'll go for 10 cars per train, and we'll use our ghost trains as well, just so we can see how we're doing. I'd also quite like to change the colour of the track, just to a more conventional looking brown. Something like that for now. Okay, now to start off with, we're going to have our first drop as a big diagonal. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is it does reduce the positive g-forces on large drops like this, because they are somewhat stretched as opposed to like sections that run the regular grid. As well as that, I think it'll help kind of fill out the space a little bit more nicely. Otherwise, if we go straight into a drop along here, we're going to be looking at a pretty boxy design overall. So I think if we do something like this, we'll be off to a good start. Now, instead of going straight back up steep slope like that, I think I will put in a little airtime hill, and that'll bring us over to the other, right to the other side of this section. And that's that makes good use of that space, I think. Now, something here would be a bit of a turnaround, but instead of just doing kind of a flat turnaround like that, I think if we're going to go GCI sort of style, we'd want maybe a curve drop down like that, and then back up like this, and kind of do the drop that way, or sorry, the turnaround that way. Now I think I'd like to go back over the top of the lift hill here. Actually, what I think we'll do is bring it out one more piece. Keep that bank going, and the swooping climb. Yeah, something like this. Now, I think a fast sort of airtime hill into another kind of banked turn will look kind of cool. In fact, I think I'm going to go one further down. Okay, so we'll be going pretty quickly here, as you can kind of see from the ghost train. So we'll bring this around like so. Actually, we'll make this a medium turn, and then we can bring this parallel to the original drop. I think that'll look kind of cool. And before I do anything else, I'm gonna just lower the land a little bit here, just to make sure we've got no track sitting directly on the ground, because I never like the look of that. So now I think we can do another little airtime pop like that, and then maybe something like this where we do a kind of a double up. Might have to cheat and just use disable clearance checks to get past this twister coaster. Now if we can nest it in like that, I think that'll be perfect. I think we can make it up to 60. 1, 2, 3, and then a block brake. It did look like it was crawling through there, but I think it was going to make it. So I think we'll keep this for now. Now, since we've used a block brake section, the test train isn't going to like that. Just switch this back to continuous circuit. Oh, did it again. Perhaps I'll just use a regular brake for now. Okay, so now I think we'll want to get going back down this way. Now I quite like to bring a perpendicular, like a diagonal running across this first drop. Something like this. And then back down. Although we do have quite a bit of space here to fill out, so maybe what I'll do instead is, let's just see if it makes this a brake. It makes it just, it's a bit of a crawl, but I think once it has guests in it, that'll speed things up nicely, so I'm happy with that. I'll keep it as it is for now. So back to this section here. So I think what I can do is a nice little turn around like this and then do the crossover. So hopefully we've got space for that. Okay. So I want to bring this as close as I possibly can. Oh, that works out well. Although I do have clearance checks disabled, which I don't want to quite use. Okay, so we'll go one more. And then I think we'll do another high-speed turn. We are actually going to go outside the boundary here, but I think we can leave that as is. Okay, I think this will be nice if we can get a third kind of section of diagonal running parallel to the other two. That will work out nicely. Now, I don't think that quite works, so we'll bring it around something like this. And then I think we can just do another little nested turnaround within this kind of larger section with some 2x2s. Now, if all has worked out there, we should be pretty well lined up with our station. Good. So I'll leave maybe one tile and then we can start our final brake run. So maybe go 22, 18, 13, 9, then into the, actually we'll do one plain one and then the block brakes. Alright. Now, I'm pretty happy with how that looks. I think it fills out the space nicely without looking too boxy overall. So yeah, I think what's on the cards next is to do some testing. Now, one thing I'm quickly going to change here is the fact that I didn't put in the actual block brake. So I'll fix that up. I'm also going to put in an actual brake run here too, but they are going to be purely aesthetic. I'm going to set them to the maximum possible speed because I don't actually want it to wipe away any speed as it comes in because it barely made that block brake as it was, so keep that as like that. We'll also reduce the lift hill chain speed just because I just want to make sure that this isn't kept waiting at the top of the lift hill at all, so that should help us there. If we follow the train from the mid-course, looks like it carries good speed over that airtime hill. I didn't see anything too concerning with the layout there, so I think that'll work pretty well. Kind of crawls over that last section there, but I think that's perfectly acceptable. Now on the main section of track here, it's pretty quick through that medium 3x3 turn, but I don't think it's too concerning. And just to make sure that we're good with the block brake, yeah, that's a pass for me. Ideally, you'd probably want it coming in a little bit hotter, but you know, when it fills up with guests, that'll make that a lot more comfortably. So I'm not too concerned with that at all. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the overall layout. Let's just make sure that we got some decent enough stats. Okay, so we've got our excitement rating under 7, but I suspect that's something to do with the fact that I removed a lot of the surrounding scenery and pathing. So I think we can fix that up, but I'm not too concerned with stats given that this is a sandbox park, so I was mainly concerned with the aesthetics and the flow of the coaster. But in any case, what we'll do now is do a bit of theming and decoration. I'll certainly add a little bit of structure to the coaster supports. Yeah, do a little bit of landscaping and theming, and probably do a bit of a station building as well. So yeah, I think that's what we'll get started with now. Alright, so I think that's just about all the decorating I'm going to do. So yeah, just did a bit of basic landscaping and a few clusters of foliage around the place. Mixed up surface textures around as well. Added in a bit of support work for the coaster, mainly along the lift hill, but also something a little bit more subtle, which was adding in some of these support structure pieces just on some of the crossovers of the track, because the ones that are drawn by default can look a little bit unfinished or unpolished at times. So yeah, there was just a couple sections, particularly over the crossing here, where I just tidied it up a little bit. Something else I did was adjust the dispatch time to a minimum and maximum waiting time of 23 seconds, and basically what that does is pretty much time perfectly at each of the sections, such that there's no train that's held up at the top of the lift hill, at the mid-course brake run, or right at the end. So that just worked out pretty nicely without spending too much time tinkering. So yeah, I think that's just about it. So thanks to Observe the Train for sending in this design, and thanks to everyone that's submitted a coaster layout submission to us already. We don't have a set schedule, but we will get around to all of the submissions eventually. If you'd like to get involved, you can send through a coaster layout either in the track format or the park format to fixmycoasterlayout@gmail.com. Please make sure to include a couple details on the coaster, anything you want us to have a look at in particular, as well as your desired username. Make sure to check out Brian's attempt at this coaster as well on his channel, and feel free to share your thoughts and comments with what we did, and yeah, we'll hopefully see you in the next video. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, bye.